the past month and a half, I let an agent reorganize large parts of my file system. I let it create a personalized podcast to teach me things in a way that I would understand them best and have that podcast be available on a private RSS feed that I can actually use in my real podcast apps. I let an agent catalog and categorize meals based on photos. I had it adjust my workouts that I've made based on my physique goals and my current workouts in progress. I had it alert me when the air quality in my office got bad. I even let it modify and manipulate my home assistant to have better, more reliable automations, finish dashboards that have gone unfinished for so long because Home Assistant can just be like that sometimes. And I even let it create personalized meditations based on what is actually going on with me. Like, for instance, I had sinus surgery last week, and it was able to give me headspace style meditations that are actually referencing anxieties or things in my body that I'm feeling in that moment. I even let it give me advice on my stock positions or prompt me with random questions throughout the day and then catalog these as journal entries, something that I would literally never do if the agent hadn't just prompted me to say, hey, what do you think about this? Right? And then I can just hit my text to speech, tell it, and it's going to log it in an actual journal. Again, these are all things that probably would just have gone undone had I not built this system. And because the agent has the ability to write code using the latest frontier models, it was able to build UIs for this every step of the way. And in fact, what you're seeing here is the UI that this agent has built for itself over the past month and a half. You get all things from being able to choose models and thinking and all kinds of stuff. Now, this is built with ClaudeBot, or as it's now known as Moltbot, and it is running on a Mac Mini, which is kind of the weird viral thing that just sort of happened because I've been running it like this for like a month and a half, and then all of a sudden people are like, gotta get a Mac Mini to run ClaudeBot, and I've been doing that. And what's so cool about this setup is that I have it all connected via Tailscale. So anywhere that I have a network, I can always connect via Tailscale to my phone, my laptop, my Mac Mini, even my NAS drive. And as long as everything is set up, things can just talk to each other. That means that my personal UI for my ClaudeBot never, ever goes anywhere near being available to the public internet. I do not have this set up to work with Discord, and I do not have this set up to work with WhatsApp because the very first day I installed ClaudeBot, I did hook it up to WhatsApp, and it accidentally spammed a conference organizer with 50 messages. Now, I do want to say, before I talk about this setup, this is all things that you need to kind of be in control of. There's very real concerns around prompt injection and permissions and what this thing can do. So if you give ClaudeBot unfettered access to your system, it can cause unfettered damage. Straight up. And you need to be cognizant about what it can do, when, how, and where. But there is certainly risks running this setup, and it's important that you are aware of these risks before you run this setup. All of the things I've done here, I've done so knowing about the potential risks involved. For instance, a lot of people were wondering about reorganizing parts of my file system, and I did so even just through Opus Chat, right? And the way I set that up was via SSH. I created a user very specifically for ClaudeBot. I gave it very specific access, and my NAS already doesn't allow for removing files without putting them in the recycling bin. Not only that, but I do have redundant backup systems as well. So if something were to have gone very wrong, I do have external storage where this is all backed up to. So there's risks there. But what it was able to do was to take massive inbox folders of old footage from level up tutorials from the past 15 years now, or I have a ton of breakdancing clips from me from my entire career as a breaker. I have so much stuff that has just been dumped into various folders, and it's able to organize all of that for me. And the way it did so was by creating a copy of the data organizing it, creating a JSON file of the history of all of the moves it made, and then let me confirm that it was all correct before I deleted it personally. So I'm not just telling this thing to YOLO RMRF all over my system, obviously, and I'm not giving it access to be able to do that. But there are risks. Again, prompt injection, very real risk, and something that right now you're rolling the dice with just a little bit if you give this thing a lot of access. Let's take a quick look at this UI that it built because it's been working on this for a while. I have a what I'm calling the orb here, even though it's not an orb, it started out as an orb. Uh, it's a little LED matrix of animations. It's got all screensavers, and it built all of those screensavers using type GPU for me. There's a ton of them, and they cycle through them. There's animations. In fact, there's even faces. There's all kinds of fun stuff going on there. And to be honest, I'm not good at shaders, and I'm not good at type GPU, but I wanted something that was fun like this. And just telling an agent to go and throw an LED matrix on here, and granted, it took more of a back and forth than that, but hey, pretty cool, right? And also, it's built this whole UI. Now, I used my graffiti UI as the basis for this, and then it was able to use that, my CSS variables. It was able to refine this aesthetically with me. I will tell you, I have written very little lines of code in this project. It is my favorite tools like SvelteKit and Graffiti, but again, this is 100% vibe coded, and I am very confident that if I looked at this code base, I would probably have a heart attack. It is probably the sloppiest slop that's ever been slopped, but it works. So let me dig into some of these features on here. For one, it created a custom podcast for me. I want to go deep onto topics. You can see these first ones are just kind of my my test grounds for what I want it to be like, and I want to confirm that it's what I want it to be like. Is that I personally spun up a text-to-speech server on my MacBook Pro because the processing's better and it can do better text-to-speech. I have that available via my Tailscale network that connects everything. And the LLM here inside of my ClaudeBot system, where I got to get used to calling it Moltbot. I think we could come up with a better name. But ClaudeBot, inside of my ClaudeBot system, knows it has tools that have been installed to hit my text-to-speech server after generating a script and then creating a podcast. It knows how I learn best. It has a number of things that I've told it that I want it to create these as. And in that process, it's not only just created a podcast, but since my phone is also on the Tailscale network, I can actually just hit that RSS feed in my normal podcast app and subscribe to it. And as long as I'm on Tailscale, those podcast episodes are going to come into my phone like a normal podcast. It's an AI voice, it's AI clearly, but research-wise, if you give it web access and you give it the ability to research and summarize topics, especially on things you know about but maybe want to go deeper on, I think this could be a really interesting tool for me personally. I haven't used it to the sense that I really need to just yet, but when you have the text-to-speech, you have FFmpeg, you have a system that can write code, you can create long-form audio instantly. It's pretty incredible. I just fire up a chat and say, give me a podcast on this. I also had it create a meditation system, and it even creates ambient audio. It creates generated ambient audio. It creates a script for a meditation tuned to what's going on in my life at that moment, and it uses FFmpeg to combine all those and stitch it all together and then give me a player here. And I gotta say, as somebody who's never really loved something like Headspace, I've been really using these where it's talking directly to me. Like I mentioned, I had sinus surgery, I had anxiety about the anesthesia and all that kind of stuff, and it's able to prep my nervous system for that. And since my concussion, I've been having all kinds of nervous system issues anyways, and I found this to be extremely valuable. Not only that, something that I really value is box breathing. And not only was it able to create a box breathing app for me, but again, it created a shader with type GPU for a little box breathing. Now, this thing still needs work. It needs some art direction. I don't know type GPU well enough to do it myself, so I'm just going to keep futzing around with prompts until it looks better. But I say all of this to just kind of outline some of the neat things you can do with these setups. Again, mine cannot be accessed from the wider internet. It is really my local network here only. And the tools and flexibility I've given this thing have been somewhat broad, but at the same time, done so knowing the risks and accepting those risks. And I'm not ignoring those, as I mentioned with my backups and how is access to this thing. Like, for instance, some people are giving this thing unfettered access to their email, to send tweets, to send messages. As I saw, it's really easy to have it send a whole bunch of messages to somebody over WhatsApp or something like that. Some people are doing that and they're accepting those risks. But me personally, I'm more in the realm of give it read access. Like one of the things it does is it gives read access to my to do list. It cannot have write access to this to do list, read access only. It reads my to dos, and every morning gives me a list of the to dos it thinks that I should be actually doing. Maybe this has been stuck in my to do list for too long. And sometimes it suggests, and well, not sometimes, every day it suggests to say, hey, this one to do I could actually get started on. And maybe that's writing emails, maybe that's doing this or that. And even just doing initial work or that little poke for me to do the work myself, there's something about my brain and the way that I function that sometimes I do just need a message pinging me on my phone saying, hey, this to do has been on your to do list for a week. Maybe you should consider doing it, right? Now, that's just a small portion of the things that I have looked at in doing with this thing or done small experiments on. For instance, yeah, there's a lot here. And if you do go into the documentation, there's a whole lot. Cloudbot itself is an interesting system. It's interesting because of how it uses memory. It's interesting because of how the agents have a soul and they really kind of feel like a personal assistant, where it's able to remember things and remind you of things. It's interesting because cron is baked in as a first class citizen. So if I want to say, set up a reminder to do this, it's really easy for that to happen. There is a default chat UI for this. I do prefer my own greatly because I like that I could do a little vibe coded LED matrix screen on mine, right? You can also use all kinds of models. I found mini Max. I've gone into Codex, GPT. I've done just about anything that I can to give this a try. And while I do prefer Opus 4.5, who wouldn't, and Sonnet 4.5, I do find that Codex is great for coding, and Minimax is acceptable for some things some of the time as well. But there's a lot there beyond just the stuff that Claudebot has baked in, which by all accounts you can go research it. I'm not even going to suggest that Claudebot is the end all be all here of this type of system. In fact, we just interviewed this morning Mario Zechner on Syntax this morning, the creator of Pi. Pi is the agent harness that Claudebot actually uses. And there's no reason why you couldn't just build your own system on top of Pi or just build your own system in general. But I do think there's some nice things about Claudebot for people who are just dipping their toes in, if you once again know the risk. I think there's a lot here with the Claude community and the Moltbot community. There's a lot here, and I do think that if you understand the risks, I think that if you do a little bit, try it out, see how it's going, I do think there's a lot of cool stuff that can be done. And many people who say that agents can do nothing for me, or I don't see any utility in this whatsoever, I urge you to use your creativity just a little bit more, because all of these things that I've come up with here inside of this app have just been a slow addition. Like I said, I've been doing this now for over a month and a half. So for me, it's like, oh, this would be nice if it could do this, or I hit a pain point in my life right now. I can try this. And some of the things I've created and abandoned, like I said, the slop's probably out of control in this repo, at least as far as the UI goes, right? But it's been a really eye-opening experience personally. It's been an eye-opening experience because there's a number of things in my life with how my brain works, or I can just lose track of them, or I need. Or I'm not understanding concepts because my dyslexia is getting in the way or something like that. And what I found that this thing has been a really great personal assistant in terms of it's able to assist me in my general day-to-day life. It's not doing my work tasks for me. It's not writing emails for me. That's for damn sure. It's not writing message. It's not creating the podcast for me. It's not writing podcast scripts. I would never let it do that, right? It's not doing those things, but it's doing all of the dumb shit that I don't want to have to do in my everyday life. The stuff that just kind of ends up being administrative, time wasting, or keeping track of things that often go undone, but also enhancing my life, like with custom headspace style meditations, right? So this is my Claude setup as it is today. It evolves very rapidly all the time. It's constantly changing and being added onto. I run it on the Mac Mini because the Mac Mini is always on. The Mac Mini is not powerful. And if I could do this a better way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a Mac Studio when the next generation comes out. That way I can run more powerful local models, because they do suggest running frontier models and stuff for Claudebot. I understand that. But my short time with Mini Macs was that it was very capable. And with Kimi releasing new models and open source models, if you got a beefy Mac Studio, I personally do feel like I could probably run my entire Claudebot, not the coding aspects of Claudebot, but the general day-to-day personal assistant stuff. I feel like I could easily run it on local LLMs without issue. And then you're just taking that step out of it, right? Because there is that weirdness of when you're sending all of that data to Anthropic, like suddenly the system is inherently limited in like the types of information you're willing to give it, and therefore the types of utility it actually has, just because of privacy alone. Let me know what you think about Claudebot. I would love to do a video detailing my tail scale setup specifically, because I've not just moved, my Claudebot has always lived there, but I've not just kept that there. I actually have moved my entire development setup to the Mac Mini, and I'm able to connect to the Mac Mini via SSH using Zed's remote server implementation. So I use open a new remote and it opens the file. I run my dev processes on the Mac Mini and then access them with an HTTPS in development mode via my local Tailscale network on my MacBook Pro. So I'm doing all of my coding, all of my normal development flow on my MacBook Pro, but I'm doing so where the power, the processing, all of that stuff is taking place on a completely other machine, freeing this bad boy up for longer lasting battery, all kinds of stuff. And then I also even use OpenCode via OpenCode Serve. So even my AI isn't running on this machine, it's all running on that machine. Another reason why a more powerful machine will just continue to improve my process, because let's face it, sometimes when you're running, like me personally, sometimes when I'm running 8 different development servers on my MacBook Pro, this thing is heating up and the battery's not lasting and all kinds of stuff, and I'm looking to eliminate that. If you want a detailed setup of that, you want a detailed video on that setup, let me know. Leave a comment below. I've been loving all of this tech overall. Do you think Claudebot sucks? Let me know. Leave a comment. What do you think about the name change to Moltbot? What do you think about Anthropic kind of constantly getting in the way of themselves here? Even though the decisions they make are all very reasonable, I can't help but feel like Anthropic is crushing their goodwill. And like, honestly, the only reason why people are using Anthropic models is because they're the best models. Claude Code is not the best system. So by like coming after OpenCode or coming after Claudebot for their name, like the moment somebody else releases a better model, like what's keeping you on Claude? You know, what's keeping you on Opus? Well, who knows, right? We'll see. But what do you think about that whole situation? I'm just spouting off all kinds of stuff. So I'll catch you in the next one. Let me know what you think about the setup, or if you think it's cool or if you hate it. Let me know. Peace.